James,
we're
it's
back.
you.
We're
It's
back.
you. I can
I
see
am
you.
I am the world famous chef and cookbook author James Beard, and this is my partner Jacques Pepin.
just call me Bond. That's
And
it.
we're back. We're back for Table for 7 Billion. We're going to talk about food. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff today. We're going to start by talking about a little restaurant etiquette. Olive and I both come from long, extensive restaurant backgrounds. We've been thrown out of some of the best,
You said
and
expensive or expensive?
both. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the rules for customers and a lot of like misconceptions about how things work in a restaurant a little bit. And we're going to talk about that more on other shows too when we get some chefs in here. But we're going to talk about it a little bit today. Then we're going to also talk a little bit about tools. And we're going to answer a couple of questions that we've had kicking around here for a long time from old students that are now
Yep.
dead. Um,
And some of them
but
are not buried yet, so we
yeah,
should.
yeah, we need to get them in the ground. But the questions are still good. Wow, I just went sideways. So, people talk about it, it's very funny in a restaurant. There's an old adage that if you have a good experience, you'll probably share it with someone. If you have a bad experience, you'll probably share it with 10 people. And that's probably even more today with social media. People jump on Yelp and share their, if, the waiter didn't smile, um, you know, uh, all kinds of stuff that's usually pretty silly.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that people don't have valid complaints sometimes. I've seen really
Yeah,
bad
sometimes,
service
of
in
course.
restaurants. But
Uh,
most of the things people complain about are,
what has
I
changed,
don't
though?
know,
You know,
huh?
what has changed? Things have changed a lot. So the complaints
Yeah,
today are not the same as 3 years ago, for sure.
yeah.
And but what's going to be difficult today, and it's going to be that the restaurants are having a hard time delivering quality food, good food. It's very hard to find. It's very expensive, and a good staff. The staff the turnover is huge, so the training is not happening.
Hmm.
Very, very low training. So you can hire people that know what they're doing, but they're not doing that anymore.
Right.
And we said before, when Amazon offers $35 an hour or 30 or 35, who's going to work in a restaurant for 18 or 20?
Hmm.
I would personally, because I love the business and it's
Yeah.
fun, right? But that's the thing. So it's going to
I'd
be a
rather
little
work
bit
in
of
a
a
restaurant than work in an Amazon warehouse, but not that
that,
there's
that,
anything
that-
wrong with working in an
yeah,
Amazon.
exactly. So, but the point is this: the money is going to be difficult for restaurants. So all the people we know, right, in Berkeley and San Francisco, the turnover is insane.
Yeah.
They give all kind of new incentive, and they give now dental and all. No, it doesn't. It's like crazy. So the thing is, we see robots coming to kitchens now, right? And people are complaining about that. Now I don't know what's going to happen with the robots and stuff.
They're going to take
You know,
over.
well, I mean, if nobody is there to work, what else? What can we do, right?
Yeah.
Food is super
Well,
expensive. The staff, the also the how do you say that? All the regulation in California,
yeah.
that's super. For us, it's really a nightmare. So we're getting tired of it already. So I don't know. It's just like
Well,
maybe
and and I've
it's good for the
right.
kids. I'm the like it's too much. Anyway,
And I've
sorry.
known restaurateurs that closed their businesses because they just couldn't afford it anymore because, employee wages have gone way up, which is a good
No,
thing for the employees, but it's hard
not
for
for us.
restaurants to
Can't
pay that. And especially
can't.
if you're only operating at 25% capacity or half capacity, it's impossible to make a profit.
And
You've got
also,
to fill the restaurant.
it's funny because for the food, prices are in people's mind without they can't evolve ever, right? So let's
Hmm.
say someone paid $20 for a salmon or $18 or 22. That's it, right? Now you're gonna to sell a salmon today, you can't do less than 35, right? I mean, unless you buy the really crappy salmon.
Right.
35, 30, 28, maybe 25, right? But for people, it's like, wow, that's a huge jump. But we are not even making money on that.
Right.
So it's like, what do you like? How do we do that? How do we solve that problem? So one of the things they do is they don't have waiters. So you can see more and more restaurants delivery. But then, how do you pay $30 for a salmon when you? I mean, it's difficult. We're gonna have to figure out either we get some special prices for restaurant tour. Maybe there's a way to buy food altogether, good quality food. Because I know people they buy, and of course I'm not gonna talk about it, but I know some people that they buy lesser quality, otherwise they close,
Right.
and that sucks because they the customer don't know that.
Right. Right. And it's hard because like you said, people can't people have this idea that they'll see a piece of meat in the grocery store, and then they'll come to the restaurant and it's much more expensive, and they'll say, well, I don't get it, that only costs x amount of dollars.
Right,
How much, why is it so? And they don't realize all that goes into coming up with the price of a meal in a restaurant, and you're still not necessarily making money. Like I said, unless you're
right,
filling up your, I don't care how big your restaurant is, but unless you're
right.
filling it up every day, every night,
Oh yeah, that's right.
and in most cases turning it a couple times, you're not making money. You might break even, you might be able to stay open for a while, but you're certainly not getting rich. And
Right. I mean, when you make a steak, like just so not everybody eats steak, but let's say steak because that's a good example. My chef Gabi, remember Chef Gabi? So he
sure.
was from La Tour, really, fun. When he would make a steak at the kitchen to show people, he would put almost a whole thing of butter, right? To make the at the end
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
thyme butter thing. It's a waste, but that's the way it is. So you use all that butter to make a sauce, but you're not using all that butter. So but you have to pay for that butter
Right.
and all the salt and all the gas and all the stuff you put in there. You see what I mean? So all this staple that you keep, you have to pay for it. The oil, the recycling by the oil, the garbage, all
Right.
this goes in
And
there.
in a good restaurant, in a fine restaurant where they really care about the food, that there's a kitchen crew in there hours before the kitchen opens, because before the restaurant opens,
Yes.
because they're making everything. They're making they're
Yeah.
setting up the whole mise en place, they're making stock, they're making all the sauces, they're doing a lot of stuff so that people can cook a la minute once
Right.
it's in operation. So that's a lot of labor you're paying.
So when
uh
you put the price on it, oh, did you ask me for my name? I don't see my name anymore. Anyway, sorry.
the
When
government took away your name and they just gave you a number.
That's crazy. My name is gone.
Yeah, it's the robots, I'm telling you.
Uh, Anyway, I lost my track.
Well, we have your name right there on your shirt. Isn't your name Health? Or Health is your
My,
middle name.
my name is
Hey,
He.
Heal,
Hey,
Heal,
Heal.
Heal. That would be a good one.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Halt. Halt. No more. No
Danger's
passing.
Danger's my middle name, but
But you remove the D.
right. I don't use it on my passport. It's gotten me into trouble at airports.
So
Um,
anyway, so restaurants, we'll see. We have some guests coming. I know we keep saying that, but we have a bunch of guests coming, and we're gonna focus on the restaurant people. I really want to know what's going on in the Bay Area, right? Because it's very specific to here. I'm sure it's the same everywhere, but we know people here, and we can see the trouble they're running into. I mean,
yeah.
just Cesar to try to reopen it's such a nightmare, right? But when you when you make a price for someone for a steak, let's say I'm going to steak a steak $20, 25, whatever. The way we calculate, if a steak has a sauce, the sauce has to be done. There's time that has been spent for that sauce. It's served with green beans. How much work those green beans took to make? How
Hmm.
many hours? So, and then that green bean that you pay whatever $5 a pound or something, or $3, whatever. Then you have to add the labor, right? And then out of that whole thing, you make 20 portion or 25 sides. That's the price that you're going to get. You see? And
Hmm.
that's why you multiply by three always, because if you multiply by three, you kind of cover your cost. That's how the ratio goes in restaurants. And
Right.
that's if the restaurant is well managed. because sometimes just three is not enough. If your staff is out of control, then you're losing everything because the margins are really small in restaurant. Let me tell you how it
Yeah.
goes. It's about 28% to the staff, 28 to 35, right?
Right.
The food is about 20, 6 to 35, depending on how you manage. So that's already 70%, 60 to 70%, right there, gone. Then you add the operational cost. Operation cost, all the stuff, electricity, garbage, all this stuff. That's about 10 to 15%. I'm just giving you an average, right? Then you have your rent. Sometimes the rent is in those costs. The rent is about, it could go from 5% to 20% of your gross. You see already you see the margin that left over
It gets
right there.
smaller and smaller and smaller and
You're
smaller.
already at 90%,
Yeah.
85, 90%, and that's if everything goes super well. Then you have
And then
and
you
then
get
you have your
somebody
loss.
send back a steak because they say that there was a hair on it, or it was too cooked or something. So you have to, now you can't sell that. So that's just cut into your profits even more.
Well, I didn't even include the loss, like the food that goes bad, the poorly managed food in the fridge, thing that you throw away, stealing stuff. All this stuff goes into the cost of good.
Yeah. I mean, when I
And
was in retail, when you sell like in a cheese counter, there is so much waste
geez,
because every wheel that you
yeah,
open, you
I
can't
know.
necessarily sell the whole thing.
Right.
Plus, you're constantly facing the cheese to make it look good. You're giving tastes to people. If you're a good cheesemonger, you always give them a taste.
Yeah,
So
that has to go
there's
in
a
the cost.
certain percentage of every wheel of cheese that is just going to be scrap.
Yeah,
So,
that has to go in the cost. So this is your cost, people, right?
right. And yeah, and a funny example, this is of just how what a misconception people have. We had a customer at Cesar, and you know him. I won't say his name on the air because millions of people are listening to us right now, and I don't want to get him in trouble. But uh, he he used to he's come into Cesar for years, and he usually comes in at lunch, or at least in the later years. He used to come in at night, but he just always had something to complain about. And one time he brought in, this was like probably in the last year, maybe last 18 months, Cesar was open, and he came in and he had saved a menu from about, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And he brought it in to show me because he was always complaining that our glasses of wine got more and more expensive. So,
Yes, yes, yes.
and
Right.
he said, how come you don't have a good $9 glass of wine? And I was like, well, because first of all, we buy interesting wines made by
Yeah.
small producers. That's what our customers want. They don't want to come in here and just drink B&G Bordeaux. They want something interesting, something that they've probably not had before, something they're probably not going to be able to buy at Safeway or even a
Right,
nice
right,
wine
right.
store, because a lot of this
Yeah.
stuff gets sold strictly to restaurants because it's such small quantities. They want restaurants to have it. Anyway, so he brought in this menu and it showed tapas that were, $5, and there was like a couple of glasses of wine that were $8, and he was like, how come you can't do that? I'm like, and I said to him, I said, Bernie, okay, there, I said his name. Oh, now we're going to get sued. But
Oh,
I said, Bernie, I said,
not the same
where
bunny.
where else can you possibly go that 20 years later the prices haven't gone up? I mean, go buy shoes, go buy.
Well, do you remember that when we started Cesar, Dennis always wanted a $5. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
We had this $5 glass of wine. That was like when we opened. He wanted to keep that to have something, and that was a good idea, but it's not sustainable, right? There's no way good wine today is, and you have to have you. The thing is, restaurant is very difficult. You need to make money somehow in order to keep going. So if that's not happening, I don't see how people are going to do it. And I know it's expensive. I got that. I mean, I would never pay $15 for a glass of wine or $20 unless I go out and I really, for me, it doesn't make sense because I cook at home. I make food. I love bars though. And I would go and when I go, I would rather, sorry, man, I would rather get a cocktail personally, something, Sorry, guys, give me one
Uh-oh.
second. Let-
Yeah, I agree. I mean, cocktails are something that for a lot of people, they don't make them at home. So either because they
Right.
don't have all the ingredients or they don't have the
And also
skills or whatever.
you see the show. It's like, you see the bartender making your drink. It's really cool. There's a whole adventure there, right? And that's what we're
It's
looking for. We're looking.
it's funny because so many people used to come in and say, "I want a Manhattan, but I want Bill to make it
I
because
know,
Bill
I know.
knows how I like my Manhattan." And so I would go to Bill and I'd say, "She wants you to make the Manhattan because you make it special for her." And he says he'd look over and he'd see who it was and he'd say, "I just make her a Manhattan." I mean,
I
it's
know, I
just,
know.
but they have this idea that because Bill makes it for them, that it's very
That's
special, and it
why,
is. He's a
you
great
know,
bartender, but
it's, James, the cool thing about Cesar, that was it. It's people get their habit and you say yes. You're not going to say no. You
no.
say yes. And Bill makes it, and that's it. We're done. And the customer is extremely satisfied. It's
Somebody
like,
wanted
it's
Bill to
beyond.
make somebody wanted Bill to make their Manhattan one night, and I said, "Well, I don't mind, except he's not here tonight, so I'd have to call him at home in Sonoma and have him make it and bring it. It's going to be warm by the time he gets it. plus, plus it's going to slosh out of the glass as he's driving down. So I
No,
don't
just
know.
put
I
the
don't know if
ice,
it's such a good idea."
do it in Sonoma and put the ice in Berkeley. It's going to be a little bit different, but so
um,
anyway, let's Jimbo, we have 2 more minutes. We're gonna do 20
I
and
wanted to say one more thing about wine. In that, so many people would come in and they'd order 4 glasses of prosecco for the table, not prosecco, but
Cava.
cava for the table, and they just couldn't conceive of buying a bottle of wine because that's too expensive. But they would end up drinking 4 glasses of wine or more, sometimes. And
Uh,
I'd say, if I had known you were going to order so many glasses, I would have suggested
uh,
you just get a bottle because that's 4 glasses of wine are in a bottle.
it's fine. It's part of the experience, right?
Right. And
It's
as
open.
far as offering a $5 glass of wine, I mean, you could buy wine cheap enough that you could afford to sell it for $5, or you could even take a loss on it. But why
That's the
would you
point.
want to do that? Why would you want to
No.
encourage people to buy something that you're not going to make any money off of? And then you've got
Also, it
all
would
these
be
really good wines.
no. I mean, James, it would be fine in a big restaurant somewhere else with a lower rent and not as much, financial burden. But when you are in the city, everything is crazy expensive. The rent is out. I mean, for me, Kitchen on Fire, my rent is crazy. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I'm
I
sure it
charge
is.
people.
You're in
They're
North
paying for
Berkeley.
it, but it's like insane. It's a thousand fucking. It's like crazy. So
Yeah,
I'm. My classes are doing really well. I'm selling, so I can pay my rent. But I don't know how long this is sustainable. My business has to be full, and it's very tiring. And now it's going well, but there's always waves, and it's very worrisome. And I am in better position than restaurants
right,
because I know exactly I'm getting my money before I do my class. It's paid for. I can buy the food. I don't waste.
right,
I pay my chef a fortune, which is good. I'm not complete. I want that because they're really good chefs, and I want to pay for that. But in a restaurant, you never know who shows up,
right.
other than the reservation, which sometimes they don't show up. So this is a really different business. And even I have like I'm wondering how much I can keep doing that with that system in California. It's too expensive. Everything is crazy.
Yeah.
But the restaurants, I don't know how they do. Seriously, honestly, I did audit for restaurants. I did some complete audit, taking the P&L down and breaking it down and trying to find the. Now I would not know what to do.
And like you
I don't.
said, you know how much food you're going to use in a class because these are the recipes we're doing. This is how much food we need for X
Yeah,
amount of people. In a
exactly.
restaurant, you might put quail on the menu thinking this is a really great dish. You have to buy enough quail so that you don't want to just run out the first hour you're open. You want to have enough quail that you can serve quail all night. Well, what if no one orders it? Then you've got all these birds sitting there prepped, ready to go.
Well, I mean,
Um,
quail at least you can keep it for a day or two. But how
Sure,
about
but
fish? Fish.
eventually it's
Like how about your fish?
a fish. That's
Fish
a
has to
really
go.
hard one. Yeah,
Shrimp, scallops. I mean, they have to go like unless you freeze them, which is completely weird because frozen scallops is tough, man. It's tough to cook.
well, they hurt your teeth when they're frozen. You could make cocktails with scallop ice.
Oh
That might
wow.
be a twist that could set you apart. I don't know if it's a good thing. Probably not.
Yes, that would be a
Yeah.
weird twist.
So I mean, it's a whole new world. I mean, I think COVID really kicked kicked the whole thing in the you know what's. But I think even before that, it
In the
was
robots.
happening. I mean, it was the
It
prices were
was,
going
but
up, and
it was still manageable. We were still managed, to have some type of, enough business, and the food was, not too crazy expensive, and the regulation are not crazy. I mean, right now the regulation are insane for me, for the food. I don't know, and so I have too many employees. I have to get rid of some because I can't. This is not good for me. So
oh,
I have to reduce my business because I can't afford all this. Can you believe that? Anyway, yes.
that reminded me of something else. My wife and I went out to eat the other day it happened to be Valentine's Day. That's not why we went out, but we went out. Um,
Whoa.
but we went to this place that we like a lot. I won't say the name of the place, but we go there every once in a while. We like it. This was in the afternoon, so it wasn't before they really kicked in the dinner service. But couple things happened that I thought were really interesting. And from a managerial point of view, I was just dying to get out there and just start, running things. First of all,
Wow.
uh, I like our drinks came up on the bar and I could see them sitting there and people
Oh my
kept
God.
walking by them. Even the
That's really
manager
funny.
walked by them and didn't,
Right.
and they probably were all, none of them were our servers. So they were all just ignoring the drinks. Now at Cesar,
Yeah.
drinks come up, doesn't matter
Yeah.
if it's your table
You
or
pick it
not. You
up.
see
Right.
drinks, you
Right.
run them. You see
Right.
food, you run it. It doesn't matter who it's for. It's for the restaurant. You get it out there as quickly as possible. You want that drink to be cold, you want the food to be hot, all that stuff. So that was one thing, and I just kept thinking, oh man, just come on, just pick, just we're it's 10 feet. You just, who cares if you're busy, just run the drinks over, set them down. The other thing was, I'm looking around and I could not believe how much staff was there. They
Oh
had
wow.
so many people working. It's not a big place. It's probably not a lot bigger altogether seating wise than Cesar. And there must have been 20
Wow.
people in there, bussers, waiters,
Man. Was it in Berkeley?
hostesses, managers, huh?
In Berkeley, right?
Yeah, now I know that it was Valentine's Day, so they were probably expecting a big
Yeah,
night.
yeah.
I'm sure they had
Right.
reservations.
Right.
But I just couldn't even believe it would take that many people to run the place on a busy night. And if you're managing it, why would you have that many come in that early? Because you're not going to need them until really like 5, 6 o'clock when the dinner rush really. So it was a whole thing. So a lot of times when I see poor service in a restaurant, or I see inconsistent service, or inefficient service, right away I'm thinking the manager. I'm thinking, where's the manager in this? Because these are kids. They're not necessarily going to
I
think of
know.
this stuff on their own.
That's so to
You need somebody
James.
there that's going to train them and say, look, you need to do
Look,
this and you need to do that.
without to give names again. Well, we're gonna keep that all the stuff anonymous. But like the very famous restaurant around us, not
Yes.
far from us, okay? They have kids now as waiters and cooks.
Right.
Very different, right?
Yeah.
They can't make them work. They don't get the work. It's different. And a lot of the famous restaurants have this issue. I know a couple of restaurants in Oakland, also very kind of fancy restaurant. I know the owner, and the staffing is younger and less experienced today.
Yeah.
How do you? The restaurant is tough. It's not easy, right? I mean, in France, I was telling you last time, some of the waiters, they are professional waiters. That's all they do.
Yeah.
They are waiters. They are professional server. They are a server. That's what they do. They've been trained long time. It's not that difficult, but there's some type of thing you need to do, right? There's no training here now. And the cooks. I mean, in order to be a chef in France at the time, I don't know what's happening today, but at the time, remember you had to go to many, many restaurants, and then you have to, and you don't get trained in a restaurant. Remember we talked about that. You just
Right.
are thrown in. They just
Right.
give you the menu, tell you how the menu looks, but that's pretty much it. So this is how I
Right.
want my lettuce. I want my fish to be right here. I want my sauce to be on the bottom right here. I want the green right here, and I want that on top exactly like this. They either show you a picture, done, you figure it out, right?
Right. Yeah.
Now you have to train people that don't learn. So the chef doesn't have time. That's something also, I used to do training when I first opened Kitchen on Fire. A lot of restaurants would call me to do some training because the chef doesn't have time. So I could do very basic stuff, right? Like knife skill, how to, basic stuff. I did a lot of that at the beginning when we first opened, and we dropped it because it's too much work. But it's maybe I should go back to that thing, man, because I tell you, the training is very difficult. It's not difficult to train someone. It's just the chef doesn't have time to do all this, right?
I wanted to
It's
start
already
a
over.
Yeah, I wanted to start a freelance business where I would contract with restaurants to come in and train their staff, not the
You
kitchen
know,
staff, but the
I'm
front of the
serious,
house
man.
staff. Because it's what they don't realize is that if my glass of wine, for example, or my cocktail is sitting there empty and it's halfway through my meal, or maybe I haven't even got my meal yet, and my drink is empty, it's not just that you're annoying. That's money in your pocket. You come over and get me another cocktail. That check just went up by what, 12, $14, whatever they're charging for a cocktail in
That's your
restaurants.
profit right there. That's
Yeah,
your
and
profit right
and that's your tip. That's everything. So, why would you not want to make sure that that customer gets another glass of wine or another cocktail? And you're not just trying to push stuff on people. It's all part of customer service, and you want them to be happy. You want them. Ideally, you should be finishing your wine about the same time you finish your meal.
there. Right.
So if you run out of wine halfway through or after you've eaten your appetizer, you need to get more, and it's money for the restaurant, it's money in your pocket. Drives me crazy. And I don't blame them. I blame the management. Like I said, it has to come
Yeah,
from the top.
it has to be. So I would love to do that again, except I'm tired of this business. Not I'm tired of the business itself. I don't think that's going to help a lot because we are too deep in that the prices are too crazy. So unless they figure out how to make food more affordable, I'm talking about real good food, right? Then the restaurants are going to suffer for sure. And then the kids don't want to work. They don't have that mentality.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. So we need to solve all this. We can't train untrainable people. So I
Well,
would
it's
never go
also
into that today. It's funny, right?
it's also funny. I've seen restaurants that are new restaurants that open up and they have like a week long training course for their employees. So they get all the
Yeah,
servers in a
that's
week ahead of
great.
time and they train them and they go through, they do role playing. They everything is so that when opening night comes, this is a trained staff. And then you know what happens? 2 weeks into the run, half of them are gone
Yep.
and they've hired new, and the new ones they hire, they don't have time to go through all that
Uh,
again. So suddenly you've got half your staff is like not on the same page with the other half.
and you
It's
already
really
spent the
really
money,
hard.
and you
Huh?
spend the money to train those people. You
Right.
already spent that. You
you
already
paid them
wasted.
you paid them an hourly wage, you've probably fed
Restaurant has
them, you
opened. Food has been done. This
yeah.
is all going into the garbage.
Yep. Yep. So it's hard, it's
Anyway,
really hard. I feel for restaurateurs a lot, and I hope that we can
we'll
figure
see,
out a
man.
way to
I'm in a
keep them all
different field
going.
now. I'm teaching, and it's much more rewarding at my point. I'm teaching health, how to eat properly, how to cook. So I think it's much more rewarding for me at this point. Restaurant, I don't think I would enjoy it anymore, but I'm not. See, if I had a lot of money one day, I think I would open a new restaurant with a lot of cash in my bank. Yes, that I would do. Small restaurant,
It'd be small, it'd be
you know what I mean?
simple,
Yeah,
it'd be
small, but I have to
very
have
little
money in the bank.
staff.
If not,
I
that
was
that
trying to teach my I was trying to teach my granddaughter to eat more, to eat properly, because it kept falling all over her shirt and onto the floor, and so I was trying to get her to get it in her
that's funny.
mouth, but that's
All
probably
right,
not what you
so
meant.
yeah,
So
exactly.
anyway,
What's your next? What's your next? Let's go
so
to
I have
the
a
next question.
this is
Yeah,
one of the
you had a good
questions
question
that
for me.
a student asked, and I thought it was good, especially since last week we talked about our backgrounds and how we got into the food business and how we
Yeah, right.
learned to do things. Well, this was a student that asked, what do you think is the best way to learn how to cook if you don't know anything about cooking? and we both agreed, well, ideally you go to Kitchen on Fire and you take the 12-week basic class and you learn how to cook, and you pretty much know how to cook by the time it's over. But suppose you can't do that. Suppose your schedule doesn't allow for that, or you can't afford it, or whatever, or you just don't like Chef Olive.
Mhm.
Maybe, there are people. um
There's other
so
chefs. So if
so what
that's
do you
the issue,
do? What do you do? So what do you
you
think?
just
I have some ideas.
yeah. So what I would do and what I tell my student is you basically pick a few recipes, like maybe 5 recipes. Start with one, obviously, right? Something pretty easy, like let's say a good example would be a ratatouille, right?
Hmm.
Roasted chicken, braised chicken, all these basic stuff. Those are super basic. Once you learn how to do it once, you need to repeat the same recipe over and over. I know it's going to be boring, but there's a thing that people don't understand, and this is very important. And I would like to develop that another time, James. But the fact that people are looking for always a big variety of things, I think for me, it's a big mistake. That's not how we are supposed to eat. We're supposed to eat food, keep it for a few days, eat that food, and then go to the next one as you recycle. Today, in this world, we want Mexican, then Asian, then we want Indian. It's always changing, completely crazy. So that's not the idea. The idea is make big, beautiful, healthy meals with a lot of good stuff, and you eat that for a few days. You recycle it. Then you take that food and you make a stew. You know, like that's what we used to do, right? We used to do
Right.
that. We used to keep that food going. So that's my first thing. So keep that simple. Make a ratatouille, make a braised chicken, pick a few, like a cacciatore or lapin chasseur, those very basic stuff, right? They're really good. They're super satisfying because the result is pretty impressive. It's not
Hmm.
difficult to make. You do it over and over and over, and then you stop doing that. You make a new recipe, something else. Do about 5 recipes like this. Have a bank of 5 cool, like good, and repeat those recipes as you go.
Hmm.
Try to make them without a recipe. And I tell you, once you get that covered, you're going to be able to cook way more easy in other stuff, right? Now,
Right.
some people do not like to cook. They just want to eat. And that's different, right? I'm talking about people that have some interest in being healthy and making sure that food come from their home, which guaranteed the quality, right? Because you have no idea what's in the food, man. As well, we talked about that just earlier. The food is getting crazy. People
Yeah.
buying cheaper food. So what do you think they put in those $15 meal plan? I mean, seriously, like $12, $13, $15 for a meal. What do you put in there? Like seriously, what food do you get? What chicken is that?
Right. Right.
Yeah,
I think that's
anyway.
true, and I think if you learn, pick a soup that you really like, get it out of a
Yeah,
cookbook or
soups are
something,
great
make
example.
that
Yep.
soup, make it a few times, and then you're going to start to understand how
Yep.
soup works. And you're going to, maybe the next time, maybe you want to make the soup, but maybe you want to make it a little different. You want to do different vegetables, different meat. And if you cook meat often enough, you're going to learn how to cook meat. You're going to get a sense of how to cook a meat. So it's not that different to cook, say, a pork tenderloin, to roast a pork tenderloin, as it is to cook a roast beef. I mean, it's different, but it's
Yeah,
not
no,
that different.
roast beef is more tricky, right? Because you have to wait, it's long, you're freaking out when you don't know how to do it, right? Pork tenderloin is pretty quick, so you see the
Well,
result
pork
pretty
pork
fast,
tenderloin's much faster, but
like
it's
10,
still,
15
it's the
minutes, right?
idea of knowing what the
Right,
meat feels like when it's
right,
getting
right.
done. When you cook a steak and you can feel it and you can tell. There's a lot of things that just come from experience. How the food looks, how something sounds, how it feels. That's all stuff that it's hard to get out of a cookbook. But once you do it a few times, you're just gonna know. Um, I mean, I cooked fish. I cooked a lot of fish before I really learned how to cook fish. And
Wow.
and and the biggest thing for me, I mean, not this was over years, but the biggest thing for me was just to keep it simple and to treat it delicately. Don't overcook it. That's the worst thing you can do to fish, is overcook it. Um,
Yeah. Oh, it's a
th-
President Day today. Is that
yes,
That's, I was wondering what there's nobody on, none of our friend out here. No, 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 it's President Day. I mean, it's fine, right? We don't care because it's
Well,
always
we're
holiday.
basically celebrating two presidents, one who freed the slaves and one who owned slaves. So, um,
Ah, what is the President Day? What is that? It's like is it
well, it
about one
used to be.
president or is it?
Well, they're both Abraham Lincoln and George Washington have their birthdays in February, and they used to be celebrated separately. And then somebody got the
Uh,
bright idea to make it a national holiday and just combine it into President's Day.
wow.
So
Okay.
it's
Okay.
usually
All
it's
right.
usually this time of
That's
the
funny.
month, but because I think Washington is born on the 22nd, and I think Lincoln was the maybe the 18th. I'm not sure. So they're right around there. So they just combined them.
Oh,
It's
wow. That's
a
it.
funny thing.
That's the celebration. It's
Yeah.
those two guys. It's not
Yeah.
presidents like every day,
No,
right?
it's I
Like,
mean, I think it's evolved to think about the presidency in general. I actually read a nice editorial about it today in the New York Times, and it's funny because most people, it's a day off, it's a holiday, so they get the day off, they go to the
that's
park,
what I was
they do
thinking
whatever,
because like
but they're not thinking about George Washington and Abraham Lincoln,
who does?
I think about Abraham Lincoln every time I pull a $5 bill out, but I guess
Big.
Washington you think about more often because he's on the $1 bill, so you probably see more of those than.
Uh, it depends where you
But
go.
yeah, so yeah, that's it.
Depends
That's it. It's a
depends the
school
type of bar
holiday
you go
today.
to, right? All right, that's why. Okay, so that's why it's very quiet. I have no office, nobody in the office today. I was wondering, I mean, not that I'm like, it feels different. Yeah, it is different.
Well, don't rule out alien invasions and abductions, but it's probably the holiday. Probably the holiday.
Those aliens, man.
Yeah. So,
So I
another
would do
question.
that. Yes,
Oh, I would do that
you
too.
know, yeah,
And learn five dishes
yeah,
that
great.
you can make to entertain friends and family. You know, like you said, a roast chicken, ratatouille, some sort of casserole, whatever you like. Maybe you love macaroni and cheese, so learn how to make a really great macaroni and cheese. It's not a dish that I get crazy about, but if you're going to make one, you can
Yeah,
make them really interesting. You can use a
yep,
variety of
yep,
cheeses. You make a
yep.
bechamel. Use really good grade pasta,
Like a good cheese
and
sauce. And
yeah,
actually, it's funny. I mean, except for the pasta, I hate pasta because it's too. So for me, pasta, and it's just me. Huh? I'm not. I don't like the pasta because it occupies too much room with wheat and stuff that are not really nutritive. So for me, it's kind of. I don't want to eat too much. I want to eat real, like quick, very nutritive food. So I'm done with it, and I don't have to worry about taking new supplement or anything. But anyway, this is,
yeah.
that's what I teach. I teach how to, also that's part of not the technique class, obviously, but I teach also how to make sure you eat not too much, the proper amount of food. So Lisa, my business partner, she has a good theorem: 80% good food and 20% the rest, whatever you want. And I think
Right.
it's great. 70 to 80% great food. You have nothing to worry about
Well, and
anything.
it's a lot
You want
more
to eat candy?
realistic.
Eat candy. Exactly,
If
exactly.
you tell
Right,
people never
right,
eat
no,
sugar, never eat this or that,
right.
it's unrealistic. And
Hmm.
and
And then they're
also
gonna end up.
I also think that you can deny yourself things long enough so that finally you just can't take it anymore, and then you binge out. You go and eat an entire cake or something. So
And that's the
give
thing.
yourself a treat. Treat yourself. Nothing wrong with having a piece of cake in the afternoon if you're hungry and you want to sit down and have a cup of coffee and a little slice of cake or a piece of tart or.
Actually, the point you just made is something I tell the parents all the time about the timing of eating sugar. In France, we eat our candy at 4 o'clock p.m., somewhere around 4, maybe 5, because in France we eat later. So if we eat at 8, 8:30, or we used to, then when we eat our candies, our chocolate, all our stuff, it's 4 to 5. We're still outside,
Right.
right? So the now things have changed a little bit. I know I have to deal with that with my son, right? He's 17. The amount of social media and phone in your face is unbelievable, right? And I know we talked about all this, and people know that. But when I was young, I would come home when it was dark.
Yeah.
My parents had no idea where I was until 7:30 or 8. I would
Well,
come home around 8. 8.
we came home at dinner time.
Yeah,
We were
right.
we were told dinner's at X time, be home by dinner,
And
and
that
we
never
were. And
changed.
then typically we
Even
if it
when,
was summertime, we'd go back out after dinner.
so if it's summer, yes. If it's cool night, we would not go out. We would stay home after the dinner because and also,
Right.
but that's it. And so my parents had no idea where we were the whole time.
No.
We'd come
Yeah.
home, drop our bags, take our bicycle, go to the forest. There was a forest not far, like right behind the house. We were in the forest or in the city. It's a small town, right? So that's easier, right? But we were out all of that. People knew us, they knew where
Sure.
we were. I mean, you know everyone, kind of. It's fine, completely fine. And now we live in a psychosis of people are completely freaked out about everything. It's hard for the kids. The kids don't understand. The kids, they don't get it. So they are completely on their phone because it's kind of the escape, right?
Right.
When my days, the escape was music. I would listen to music forever, and I would go in my, what I mean, like you. And for them, the escape is the crazy shit. Oops, sorry,
Yeah.
the crazy thing you see on all this social media, and it's getting weirder and weirder.
Well, and
How do
TikTok
how
and
do
all that
how do the
stuff.
kid how do the kid can associate to that? I don't get it. There's no association possible. You can't associate with people that look all happy on the internet. It's not true. It's all fake. Everything is
Yeah.
fake.
Yeah.
So this is a big problem,
Also
right?
for
For the
for
kids,
little
I'm talking for
kids,
the kids.
little kids want to
Yeah,
run around, and you don't, nowadays you don't want to let them run around in the city by themselves because there's too many
yes,
crazy people out there. But
and it's
when I talk to them, I don't want to scare them. I don't want to
yeah,
say
right,
you need to be careful because somebody's going to abduct you and kill you and blah,
yeah, yeah,
I don't want that in their minds. I don't want them to go about life that way. I want them to
no, right.
keep their sense of childhood wonder and happiness.
So
But I know, and so I just want them to be careful. But
one of the good program that we do here is we have teen camps, and I used to have a teen camp every week online to bring people home at 4 and they cook for their family. But it was not busy enough. People don't do that anymore, and
yeah,
very unfortunately, because I can provide a really good service for these people to get back to away from the computer. I mean, it's online, but it's different. You have to be able to do stuff physically. We're physical. We have legs and arms, and we do things. And now we're going to not do that. So it's the same when I do the recipe. We're talking about doing 5 recipes. Most people you just buy food, but you have to stop. So we have to stop, go back to cooking, doing stuff, being together, playing games. I don't know, whatever, right? I'm trying
yeah,
to figure out that for a big company I work for, and we're trying to figure out how to. These people are very busy, super busy, and they work sometime until midnight. It's a really good corporation, but the people work a lot, and we're trying to see how we can integrate into their day some fun stuff, enough cooking so they can eat well because they can't cook because they work too much, and then they're eating really terrible food, and then they're not healthy. And our job is to make sure that in the day we figure out ways to make food really quickly. And one of the best examples to make food quickly is those tray bake,
hmm,
that trend you see everywhere. I've done so many recipes like that. It's so easy. You have food, you have protein, a couple of veggies, your oven, you put everything on your tray, go in there, done, wait 20 minutes, basta. Minimal cutting,
and you can cook a large amount of food so that it'll last for a couple days, or you can
yes,
feed a crowd, whatever, whichever you want to
exactly.
do.
Because man, it's like difficult.
Yeah.
So,
Even when I was a kid, it was before we had cell phones and social media and all that. But I remember being invited to eat over at certain friends' house, and I would go over to their house for dinner, and they would have a TV in the dining room
oh
area,
yeah, I know
and
it's
it was
weird.
always on. It was
I
always
know.
on. And so everybody's eating and they're all watching TV. And
That
it's like, well,
the thing
that's
is
not
funny
very
with
good.
something about TV that's funny. In France, when I was young, we had one movie at 8:30, and that was the movie. And I was always so we we had this schedule, and my dad was like, "Oh my God, tonight is the whatever, right?" So
Yeah.
we'll come around 8, 7:40. We'll come around 7:45. We do a little bit of homework if we had to. I never did mine. But and then we go, we like, and the movie was at 8:30, right? So everybody at the table at 8:20, and we start discussing, and we have one movie, and it was the movie every all of us watched together,
Right.
and
So
that was
everyone was
kind of.
discussing it the next day too. You know, if you go to school and everybody's
So
like,
the
"Oh, did you
TV
see that?"
was also part of the my life. I can't say, but it's not. It's never on like
Well, I
it's
wasn't. I'm not suggesting that TV is somehow bad.
right,
I
right,
mean,
right.
TV is a wonderful invention, but I mean, there's a
It's a
tremendous
non-stop
amount of
thing.
garbage on TV, but
Right.
there's also a lot of really great stuff on TV. But you have, I think it's important to sit down and have dinner and talk, and because you're not talking when the TV's on,
When
you're
you
just
no, but I mean, we that was the rhythm. We had that rhythm. The 8:30 movie was everybody at the table, and then after the movie at 10, then we either so we go to bed, right? We were young. If it was a school night, and on the weekend we could watch a little series of it's like it was a cartoon or some funny stuff. Like we had the street of San Francisco. We had all these
oh yeah,
American that my dad loves. He loves Jerry Lewis. So we had that little half an hour. But then what we do often, and we have a subject. My parents pick a subject. So it's either biology, the eye. So my dad was more like a scientist. He was a chemist and a doctor. And my mom was also a doctor, but she was much into art and literature and classical music. So we had those themes, and we pick a theme, and then we discuss that. So they had tons of books, Laos, all the old beautiful stuff, and we discussed that subject for about an hour, and we do drawings and stuff. So I learned a lot from my dad and my mom about basic stuff that nobody else would teach me. I mean, no school would teach that, right? And so I have a very good education, even though I never went to school. I'm very literate. I understand. I've read tons of books on my own, not because of that. So anyway, we're completely off the subject, but
yeah.
of the
But I know
cooking.
what you mean.
And
I
I,
know what you mean. I did go to college for a few years,
oh
and
yeah, right.
my problem with college was that there was always the stack of books that I was supposed to be reading, and there was a much bigger stack of books that I wanted to read, and that
Wow,
usually won out. So like, I want to read these. I don't care about
that's
those,
great.
and I still read
It's
a lot.
funny.
I'm
Oh, James, you know what I see? My son is reading the Flyer in the Rye. You know Salinger? What's his name?
Oh, Catcher in the Rye.
Catcher in the Rye. That's
That's
funny.
a
I read
wonderful
that in
book.
school in France. Can you believe
Yeah.
that? So we
Oh
in
wow.
France we read Kerouac, Salinger. We were reading the American classic. That
Huh.
was something we would study in France, and I read that. That's funny.
It's a great book. I've read it many times. Yeah,
Anyway, so what's the last question? I know you have a last question, Chef. I want to treat
I
it
do.
before we go.
Um, it's what is your favorite tool
Oh
in the
yeah,
kitchen?
right.
Besides a knife, because of course the knife is always going to be the first. That's my favorite tool because that's the most essential tool. But after a knife, what is
You
your
know,
favorite tool in the kitchen?
I mean, it's essential. Yes, it is, and but so is the pan, and so is the oven, and so is the stuff. So how do
Yeah,
you right? So how do you? So I think the question might be, what are your minimal tool that you need, right? Because I don't care if I prefer one tool. I need to be able to cook.
right.
So I need a pan, right? I need something to cook the food in there, right?
Hmm.
So it could be a pan, right? This is a carbon pan, whatever, uh, that I bought not too long ago. I keep, by the way, those are really cool, huh? The old
Yeah,
style carbon, not
yeah.
the, not the, how do you call those? The cast iron. Those are
Well,
just,
it doesn't have the plate on the bottom to.
okay. And it's thinner, right?
Hmm.
Okay. And you have to oil them all the time and keep them, right?
Yep, yep.
So anyway, whatever pan, right? But you need your knife to prepare the food. You need a pan, And maybe a third super important, um, I would say the stock pot to make a sauce or a stew. I don't know, like,
Yeah.
right? One of those, maybe.
Yeah, that's a really good
Right? I mean,
shape
what
and
else?
size.
Cutting board, how do you cut food, right? You can
You need
always
a
cut it like
surface.
this,
You need a surface to do your prep on.
and then you need
And you need
a
a surface that's conducive to knives. You don't want to cut on something. You don't want to cut on a marble countertop because you're just going to
uh,
ruin your knives. And also, it would make a creepy sound. It would be terrible.
God. And then you need a, I don't know, something like tongs or wooden, I don't know, you know. So when you do
Well, I
a,
brought
I
this up.
think, I
I
think,
brought
no, no,
this.
I know. Oh yeah,
I
this,
love this spatula. I
except
use
this
a
is not for
peg.
non-stick. This is only for metal pans,
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't
right?
use it in but I don't use a lot of non-stick pans. I have a non-stick skillet that I use to make omelets and stuff or reheat food, but I wouldn't use this in there. But
This
this
you
is
can
great for
use,
fish. This
right?
is also it's a little flexible, so it's really great if you're doing, cooking little delicate fillets of fish. I use it for flipping eggs. You could use
Yeah,
it for almost anything,
that's a
but
really good
I
tool
really like it.
actually.
And because it's got these openings, it doesn't stick as much. So
Right.
it's really easy to get in there.
And actually, I would say, James, if you buy this, you guys, you need to buy the same one in silicone as well. You need to have two.
Yeah, you
And
could
then
do
you
that.
can use, because
Yeah,
those are really good, and it's one of my
yeah.
best, better tools. Yes, you're
There's
right.
also
Especially,
there's also a larger size,
yeah,
which I don't think is as useful. It's good if you're doing a big fish or something, but
well,
it's not
big
as
fan. Like,
flexible and it's
and
a little bigger than I need most of the time.
so those are really good. Like when you do crepe, you
Yeah,
do pancake, you do also you do some delicate fish, like you said. But you have to be
yeah,
careful when you can't work with the metal on a non-stick. You have to
yeah.
be careful. You're gonna mess it up. So go easy on the tools. But that's it. That's all my three tools. So knife, I guess, if you have no knife, you just, I mean, you can't really cook, right?
We use wooden spoons a lot. I have a
Yeah.
whole crock full of these
Bamboo,
French
bamboo.
wooden
So
spoons.
bamboo
I
shaped
have
like
some
this.
bamboo. Most of mine are just those old-fashioned French wooden spoons. They're made out of beech wood or something. They're really great for stirring a pot, for moving things around. You can use them in any kind of pan because they're wood, so they're not going to hurt. And the other thing that's good about them is if you leave it in a pan, it's not going to heat up. It's wood, so it's never going to get too hot to handle.
Sometimes they burn. So my kitchen there's many
You could
burners,
burn them, but
and
they're
some
cheap
people,
enough that I don't care.
no, it's not for the. I don't care about the pan. I care about the kitchen.
Yeah. Oh yeah, when I burn the kitchen down, that's a drag.
So when I have I have a bunch of burners at the Berkeley kitchen, and then some people they leave it like this, right? And a lot of them are burnt, right? It's not a
Yeah,
big deal,
yeah,
but you can see sometime in my cooking classes there's fire. So he's like, oh, yeah, there's fire. It's
yeah.
okay. It's kitchen
Um,
on fire after all, right? Right? Seriously.
yeah. Now, let me just say that in our kitchen we have a ton of pots and pans. We have
All right,
a
me
whole
too.
set of this Italian stainless steel that I've used to import at Dina DeLuca, and I brought it from
Oh
New York
yeah.
with me. We have several copper pans. We
Wow.
have several other stainless steel pans that are like all clad that we use. We have carbon steel like the one you got there. We have crepe pans. Um, and then we've got all kinds of Le Creuset. We've got
Not
like
you think
at
you're talking
least
about
five
crepe.
or six different, huh?
Le Creuset, that's so good. Yeah,
Yeah,
that-
we have a lot of
I have
Creuset.
some. I have some Le Creuset. I have my sponsor is actually Analon. Those
Great
are
stuff too.
the beautiful pen. This is what I've been using for many years. Let me show you why. Do I have any here? Yes. So those are my pens. Let me show you quickly. Those are very pretty. They work really well, right?
Oh
Pretty
yeah, those are
heavy.
great pans.
And this is a clad system. It's Analon, beautiful stuff. I've worked those. This is my sponsor. Of course, I'm gonna tell them it's good. But they are high quality. That's the thing. Yeah, I mean, those pens are old. Can you see how pretty they are?
They're not cheap either,
Crazy.
but They're
No, no,
worth
no.
it.
Those are
I
expensive.
mean,
Yeah, they're expensive.
you buy it and it's going to last you your entire life. I mean,
That's the thing. It won't. Yeah, exactly. Right.
you don't wear them out. Um,
Impossible. Impossible.
I mean,
All
most of
right.
the cookware in our kitchen will be handed down to grandchildren. I mean, it's meant to last. The
Who wants
Creuset,
to?
we have a lot of raw cast iron. We have,
Only the one. Only the one who wants to cook, right?
yeah, I think they're all going to cook. They all love to help in the kitchen. They
Great.
all are good eaters.
Yeah,
Um,
my
my,
both my boys also.
my oldest granddaughter, who's just turning 11 this week, she loves to bake. She cooks too, but she loves to bake.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, they're all, and our oldest grandson, he grew up, he spent a lot of time with us when he was growing up, and he was always doing stuff in the kitchen and just watching us cook. And he's a good cook. He can cook. He cooks for himself and his girlfriend, and they get together and they cook big meals. So it's really great to see that they got that they picked up on that, and that they cook, because
Yeah. Right.
every kid should learn how to cook. I mean, you don't have to
Every
learn how to,
every every kid, every parent
right. But it's so
also.
important to
Right.
teach the kids, because if they get into it when they're young and they have fun and they
I know.
learn,
And who's
and
going to teach
once
the
you
kids?
learn to do something, then it's fun to do.
I
That's going
understand
to
that.
last them their entire life.
What I'm saying is like the parents don't have that faculty. They don't have that
Right,
knowledge. So that's what I
right.
do. And hopefully the parents that I teach can teach their parents. And this is why they are coming to Kitchen on Fire actually. They want to
Well,
learn. They
my
just have
wife and I
to.
are always, we're always joking that in Berkeley, it seems like most of the children in Berkeley eat two things. They eat sushi or pizza, because the parents, I mean, it's just like you hear them talk and that's all they eat every night.
Mexican,
Well, let's
also
get a
Mexican,
pizza. A
Mexican
little
also.
Mexican, but it's
Tacos.
sushi and pizza, and it's just
Yeah.
like, well, those are both fine things. I like them both, but I don't want to live on either one of them,
Sushi,
especially pizza.
great, but sushi is, I mean, again, whatever. All right, so Jimbo, next week I will see you. And so, Jim, next week I'm moving my apartment at the same time we're doing the show.
Oh,
So I might be, no, I
does
might
that
be in
mean
my
we
new
does
office.
that mean we have to help?
Oh yeah. So I'm gonna be moving, and hopefully I can take my break like 1 to 2, and I'll be in my new apartment somewhere. Not my new apartment, my old apartment has been. I'm moving back to whatever. So,
Oh,
all right, people. So great. Happy. What is that? President Day. Okay, then.
yeah. Happy
Right.
President's Day. Vive le
Vive la,
président.
vive la différence.
We didn't even get to one of our questions today about prosciutto, which we'll maybe do next week, because it's an interesting question. It's an interesting topic. It's an
What's
interesting food.
the difference between all this? Right.
It's
Prosciutto, jamon serrano. What else is there?
there's all kinds of different hams. There's
And
American
there's
ham, there's
le
Black
jambon
Forest
de.
ham,
What's the
jambon
jambon
de
de
Bayonne.
Bayonne?
Yeah,
Oh,
that stuff's really good. And not all the hams in Italy, for example, are cured this way. They have a tradition of cooked hams too. Like in Tuscany,
yep. Right.
they do a
Right.
cooked ham that's delicious, made with lots of herbs. And American hams. The southern tradition of making hams is really
Oh
great.
wow.
So we'll talk a
Great.
lot about hams, but I have
Right.
a couple of
Right.
specific questions that we'll
All
get
right.
to, because why? Because we care,
Mm.
and that's
I
why
was
we're
wondering.
here.
I was really wondering about that. But
That's right.
all right, Jimbo. Thank you.
Oh, and I
You
just made up
guys,
the
everyone.
saying. I just made up a saying. Health is the new orange. I don't know where that came to me, but anyway.
You stole it from
So
someone, I
hopefully
can.
you'll all join us next week. We'll see you then, and believe me, we do see you. We can see you.